his first board is a specialty cut. I had to cut it here. But if you look down, it is not level, and that's very common with these types of boards. So you got to get a straight board as you can, and I'll show you how I'm going to correct that. Alright, there you go. Sorry it's a little windy, but I put 2 screws in this one on the right here because I believe that was the most level. And then I took that bar clamp and I tightened it to where there's a straight seam where it's perfectly aligned. Now I'll screw in this left board and I can remove this one. Alright, it's straight now. And at every place you have a subboard, you need to put 2 screws, 1 on each side. About an inch away from the edge is what I do. Now to come up with consistent spacing, I just use a nail. And I put the nail in as I go. And then you can even squeeze on top of that nail and get everything tight. Real nice line. And you can see the boards are pretty darn close together. I haven't done it all the way on this side yet. I'm doing it a little bit at a time. I take the nail here and put it between where it meets on top of the board here, and I take the clamp and I clamp it down to where there's the proper spacing, the nail spacing, and I screw it down. And I do that 1 board at a time. First 2 down, it's easier from here. Pre-drilling these holes is important on the edges because if you didn't, as the screw goes in, it could split this out, especially if it's closer to the edge. So that's pretty important. Also with screws, just from experience, I would go just flush and maybe a shade under, because if you go too deep, once the wood swells and gets wet, it'll cover up over the screw, and that'll probably help rot it out more. But I had a lot of difficulty getting the screws out because they were buried too deep the last time I did it. And as you can see here, it's too tight, too close after securing the end. One thing you can do is take a crowbar and place it in between like so, and then lift up and use my foot here, put you a nail in, and then let the crowbar back down, and it cinches down over the nail, and then you can screw these 2 in, and it leaves the gap a little bit more where you can grab an area with the crowbar a little bit further up. And if you get a knot like here that's in the path of where the screw needs to go, instead of moving it way over here, I would just drill through it and wallow out the end a little bit so the head of the screw can reset easily enough. The reason why is because knots will often pop through or pop up or pop out, and the drilling of the hole will help keep it from doing that. This is pretty cool. I've never seen this before. Look at that, the whirlwind of leaves. Picking them leaves off the ground and spinning them in the air, just in one little area. That's so weird. Huh. Okay, let's talk about board cupping. You see how this is, the grow of the tree is circled here. Typically, what will happen over time is the board will try to do that. It'll try to go up like this. And so it's best usually to screw in with the cupping facing downwards like this, like it's sitting here. But sometimes you have to choose which side is best. Do I go with this side that could have a knot here, or did I go with this side and it's got a major knot there? So in the case, my preference is, and what I've found to be true, is that you want to go with the board sides, and that's because the side that looks best facing up. And that's because I've found that when you put two screws on the edges like this, it kind of prevents. Now I'll show you over here in my old deck. You can see I've got cupping going up here, and that would cause the edges to go up over time, but because I have two screws in here, it pretty much stayed level. Here you can see where it's cupped down, and that would have caused the edges to go down if they weren't screwed in the middle to rise a little bit. And it may have done that a little bit here, but all in all, it's better to go with what the surface of the board looks like. You want the prettier part up, and don't worry so much about the cupping when you do decking. You see this area of the wood here? You got a layer here, and then a layer right here, and then so on. This is within the board, and that could potentially pop up over time as it separates between the layers. But I feel like, and I'll show you an example in the deck over there, that if you stain it and you keep it cleaned, that won't do that. That won't happen as much. Let me take you over here and show you. Now this deck is probably 10 years old or so, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about here, how the different layers are sort of popping up, but more or less it's still pretty flat. That could come up some, but there's a ways you can fix that too. But I think if you cover it, which I only did this one time in the beginning, regularly, then you won't have to worry so much about that. And one of the things you can do when you get going pretty good is you can take a nail, your spacer, and as you screw these in, you can just pull the nail up and then tap it in slightly here for the next board that could go up against it. You can see I did that all the way down as I screwed in these. I lifted this up and moved it over, screwed in those, lifted that nail up and moved it over, so on all the way down. If you can't cut a straight enough line, there's another way you can do it. You can go ahead and screw all these in, and then you could take, I used a level, a straight edge, and you put it on the edge here, and you put it on the edge here, and you draw a line, and then you set your skill saw the depth of the board here, and then you can rip it all at one time. That'll give you a straighter line. You just have to be careful and go slow, or I do anyway. Make sure it's good and straight. Alright, we're starting on the lower deck now. It's been a little while. I need to get back into it. You can see here I put a board on the older board. I've turned it over because it was a little bit bowed, and turned it over, and then I shorted up with another board. And cat's talking to me. Distracting me. Anyway, shorted up here as well. Now what I need to do first is make 3 double boards, and this is where the fishbone is going to come into play. So I've got one done here. I've got it separated with a piece of decking wood, and it's angled down so that when water hits it, rolls off quickly. Less chance for water damage. Alright, I've got the fishbone double boards here, and here, and they're approximately spaced about the width they're going to be on the deck. I just got to put the center beams in and cut the ends off to the same length all the way across and put a header board on. But all boards are up, and now I've started the wishbone pattern. I said hush, I'm trying to film. I said hush. So that's what it's going to look like. Okay, you can see the fishbone pattern on the lower deck is done. It's not finished. I've still got to put the lattice work up and that sort of thing. And I've got some shade cloth over there. It's going to go behind it so you won't be able to see underneath the deck once the lattice is up. But anyway, that's what she looks like. I think I'll finish off this upcoming video, or this video, with this part, get the step finished. Next thing I need to do is start on this whole area over here. But that's what it looks like. It's a pretty neat pattern. I like it. It's getting a little sun aged, yellowed, but I'll pressure wash it and then we'll put some stain on it when it's all completely done. So that's it for now. It's Brent. We'll see you guys later.